crazy.
Yeah.
So, Ukraine is like working with an Israel biotech company in order to supply a bunch of potassium iodide pills to Ukraine.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah, just in case there's like any kind of nuclear conflict or anything.
So yeah, the Pope's dead.
Yeah, isn't that
It's not the
crazy?
first time the Pope's died, but you know, we liked this Pope, didn't we? Didn't everybody like this Pope?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, not everybody, but he was a pretty progressive pope. That's why I think J.D. Vance killed him.
The Pope before him was progressive too, though, I thought.
Was he? I don't even remember.
The Pope before him was the one that like publicly stated that there's nothing in the Bible saying that gay people won't go to heaven or something like that.
Was that Francis?
Francis is the one that just died.
Oh, I thought Francis was like the chill one. I thought the one before him was like whatever.
I think it was like Pope John or something. I think it was the
I
Pope
won-
John.
I wonder who
Why
killed
don't you look up
him.
the previous Pope?
They say that the next pope might be the last if it's like his name is like Pope Peter or something.
That's insane.
Pope Benedict was the one before this.
Pope Benedict. You know what? I think that not him, but the Pope before him was a progressive Pope.
Saint John.
Yep, Pope John Paul. Pope John Paul. There's Pope John Paul the First and Pope John Paul the Second. I think they were both pretty good guys.
They were all right guys.
All right. It's funny that the second one after him went with the same name. What's the deal with that?
I don't know. Well, I think they just went with a guy with the same name.
Maybe like was playing wasn't done yet, so they're like, we need a new guy to fill in the rest of that role.
That's actually like a conspiracy right now is that the Pope has been dead and that they threw this guy in as like a hope to like last the last few months until they had like a pre-planned like death day for the Pope.
Easter's just too perfect.
Well, there's somebody that actually predicted online that Easter would be the day that the Pope would die.
Who? Where is that article and how much has it blown up since then?
I don't know.
I will also. Can I tell you one more thing? Pause it.
Yeah.
You know the show. You know that show Succession. That's like one of the most popular shows out there.
Yeah.
One of the main characters is named Rome, and his dad calls him Romulus.
So that's funny. There's a lot of that kind of like stuff right now.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Play the video. Do you think it's like a react? Do you think it's a reaction to the Pope dying, or did this happen slightly before the Pope died?
I don't know, but I want to restart the pod with the information that we've been presented with and just do like a mini thing about it.
Okay. Let's do it right
You know
now.
what I'm saying?
Do it right now.
Welcome to As the World Burns, a small burn for you today. Today we're going to be talking about Pope Francis dying on Easter and also
And then I want to talk about J.D. Vance too.
killing the Pope, probably. All right, so the Pope just passed away at 88 years old, and it was most likely J.D. Vance that was able to do the killing blow, allegedly. He was the last person to see him, but
He got that handshake poisoning, huh?
is that what it was? Did he shake his hand? He must have shook his hand. He
Shook the
must
Pope's
have.
hand, and the Pope
You know what
died.
he could have actually done is when he shook the Pope's hand, he could have like transferred like some weird American germs to his like Italian brain, and then basically
Was this
accelerated
Pope
his.
Italian?
I'm not sure, but the Vatican is in Italy.
Yeah, but they could pull like a German Pope or like a. I think there could
Yeah,
even
of
be
course.
like a Pope from America.
Let's just assume that he's Italian or Brazilian, either one. But
Yeah.
so he this pope, this Italian or Brazilian pope, most likely came into contact with JD Vance's Americanized germs that were all shooting shotguns and going yeah and like had like cowboy hats on and shit and was shooting off pistols and stuff. That's what the germs look like in America. for anyone outside of America. But
Just watch the
those
commercials for our drugs, and you'll see what our germs look like.
that is true. Yeah, they're usually like fat and like ugly and like, you know, weird looking. And that kind of reflects us, I would say, is what our
Yeah.
germs look like.
I feel like the germs that we show on TV are like the Americans that other countries imagine in their head, like the bad stereotype of an American
Oh,
wearing a
100%.
booger costume, and that's the
Like that
germs that we get in our commercials.
like that commercial of that like booger guy where like it shows inside like your nose and he's like, "Ah, gotta take over."
It's always something going like it's always some chubby thing going, and then like all of a sudden the drug shows up. They're like, no, and they run away.
Yeah, he gets sucked right out. Yeah, so imagine that JD Vance spread all those amounts of ugly, disgusting fat. Sorry, not fat, but like, Americanized.
Fat,
Well,
thick,
yeah, I guess fat, thick,
rotund,
rotund, very
uh,
juicy germs
wide,
into what is it?
wide.
Wide. Yeah, that's a good one. All those wide germs into Pope Francis's nostrils and face and mouth and hands, and he probably coughed and sneezed all over him. Honestly, allegedly. I mean, maybe he did. I'm not saying it happened, but maybe he coughed all over him and he sneezed all over him, and he's like, "Oh my God, I have all these American germs on me now."
I think I watched the video. I think I watched. Uh, no, I think I watched the video. I did watch the video, and I think in it he like shakes his hand and then also grabs his arm, or just kind of like gives him a pat on the side of his arm or something.
Oh, does he? He grabs him and he throws all the germs at him.
There was there's skin to skin contact with the handshake, and then he gives him like a pat on his arm. You know what I mean?
So this completely shocked the Pope system. All of this, all of these American germs just overwhelming him, shooting off shooting up his white blood cells, causing him to have to work extra harder for what little he's got left. Poor Pope.
Hmm.
I don't think he ever stood a chance against JD Vance's germs. He never stood a chance against the Vance. So, the other bit of news that we have today is Klaus Schwab, also at 88, officially resigned from the World Economic Forum. Maybe he saw the writing on the wall with the Pope, and maybe he was afraid that JD Vance was going to visit him next. Who knows?
Can I talk about JD for a sec?
Of course. Let's talk about our man JD.
JD without the scrubs. He's So I guess he was like pushed to be the vice president by some of the tech oligarchs, like Peter Thiel, and
Great guy.
I just think that he's co-founder of PayPal along with Elon Musk.
Great
Um,
guys.
but like does crazy shit in his own right. He's a
Now,
powerful
like he's
person.
he's an enemy of Musk now. He's like they're like kind of like at odds
Are they?
now.
Is
They're
that
kind of
true?
rivals now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's true.
Well, they're not like partners since I don't even know if they were partners when they made PayPal, but they did that. They're not working on anything together. Wasn't sure if they were like against each other though. That's interesting.
Yeah, they're kind of like rivals.
So another thing about Peter Thiel, his name gets brought up sometimes within the UAP and UFO talk recently. And I guess one thing I heard from multiple sources is that one of the whistleblowers right now, one of the government whistleblowers, he wouldn't give. I guess he like they couldn't get information from him, but they talked to his son, and his son said that Peter Thiel is a time traveler.
Yeah, I've heard that. There's Reddit posts
You've
about
heard that.
that too. Yeah.
You've heard about this. So
Yeah.
I always think about that. I always think about that because I always bring her up. This always makes me think of Diana Pasulka, and she's talking about like these. She doesn't call them oligarchs, but she talks about great people, great men who do things behind the scenes that don't get thanked for it. These people who are like pushing society forward, and you'll never hear about them because like that's not what they're about, and they're like actively trying to not be known like that. And she said she tells a long story of how she got invited by a person like that to go do all these crazy things, investigate an actual UFO crash site, show them like legit, credible, irrefutable proof of like UFO materials, and then takes her to the Vatican. Or maybe I don't know if maybe she took him to the Vatican. I think she might have taken him to the Vatican, or he wanted to go with her. Forgot exactly, but crazy shit happens to the Vatican where they like let him into like these crazy areas, and like all the people there that at the Vatican seem to have already known who he is. And you should bleep this out, all right? Because like most people know who that person was, or we think we know who that person was, but it's still not stated in the book. And I believe he goes by Tyler in the book, or that's what she calls him, Tyler, like Tyler Durden, and she brings that up in podcasts too. Um, he, I don't even need to say his name actually. Now that I think about it, because I'll tell you after you stop recording. But he's like in tech, I believe biotech, medical tech, and space tech, all three, right? And
And it's not
he's like a million.
Peter and it's not Peter
It's
Thiel.
not Peter. It's not Peter Thiel. I'm pretty sure we all know who it is. But Peter Thiel is also kind of brought up a lot in a similar way to this guy. And she talks about how it's not just that guy. There's other people alive right now. There's these people behind the scenes that do shit like this. They like they're millionaires who run these companies, maybe even billionaires. Definitely billionaires and millionaires. Um, and they got the secrets. They're pushing the field. But they're also kind of like you don't know who they are and what they're doing. That like the really important stuff. You know, like the companies that they run, which are also important, but like they have a mission, they have an agenda, and they're probably way more in the know and connected on a lot of spooky shit, a lot more spooky shit than we might think. Peter Thiel is one of the people that pushed J.D. Vance to be Donald Trump's vice president. Like, why J.D. Vance? Why are they pushing J.D. Vance? And from the way he's been interacting, at first he seemed like he was like a Donald Trump dick rider.
Yeah, but he wasn't before. He was pretty
I
against
don't
Donald Trump.
Yes, I think he's an expert instigator. And he's like he's
You
double
haven't
down
said
on
sorry.
he's like double downing on Trump's like worst behavior. And he's kind of like sometimes he's like a hype man, but then when he's on his own, he's like doing interesting things too. He's I don't know, like Mike Pence had nothing going on. This guy seems like he's a professional asshole.
Yeah, Mike Pence was just like a way to get the neocons on board with Trump's plans. But yeah, this guy, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they got him on board so that he could throw his germs at the Pope.
Yeah. You know the story that's like supposedly about Baron Trump, the Baron, or like you know better than I. You told me about it. It's how I know about it.
Yeah, it was like written in like the 1890s or something like that. It's about a guy named Baron Trump who's from it's about a guy named Baron Trump who's from New York who I guess he Fifth Avenue, I think specifically, which is like where Trump Tower is, and I guess he fumbles his way to the presidency, and he ends up becoming like the last president. And I think he time travels, right?
I'm pretty sure. Or maybe it's
Yeah,
not that he's a time, and maybe he doesn't time travel, but it's that like it predicts a bunch of things that's going on right now.
it does predict a lot of interesting stuff. Let me look
Um,
it up real quick.
and then we got Peter Thiel time traveling, and then we got Peter Thiel having like a heavy say in what's going down with this re-election.
All right. So here's a Reddit post. I calculated the odds of the Barron Trump books being a coincidence. The results will shock you. You might have heard about Barron Trump's marvelous underground journey, written in 1893, and The Last President, written in 1896 by Ingersoll Lockwood. These obscure 19th century books weirdly mirror Donald Trump's life and presidency. At first, I thought it was a fun internet theory, but then I actually calculated the statistical odds of all these lining up. 1 in 1.25 at 10 to the 47th power. That's a 1 in 25 quadrovignillion chance. But I want to know what actually was said in that book.
You
Here we
can buy
go.
this book, read it.
Yeah, you can. So the book is about a boy named Baron Portal and time traveled. In the book, Baron Trump had a mentor he looked up to named Don. Everything takes place in Russia.
Weird.
4 years later, in 1896, the same author writes a sequel to the book, but he calls it The Last President. And this is when shit gets real. The book is about a very wealthy man who lived in New York on Fifth Avenue who ran for president, but wasn't expected to win. This book was written over 124 years ago, but anyways, after his inauguration, he started picking people for his cabinet, and one of his people was a man named Pence. In 1943, one of the most famous inventors named Nikola Tesla died from a blood clot. Before his death, he claimed he had built a time machine and used it to travel back in time and in the future.
Keep reading.
What is it?
It says to keep reading in the post.
I know, I'm trying to avoid those. After he died, the United States government took all of his inventions and notes. The name of the office that seized all of his work was the Office of Alien Property. After they looked through it, they passed it on to the FBI. Yeah, but that's a little bit of a misnomer because it was called the Department of Alien Property because they were getting stuff that was people that lived in the U.S. who weren't from the U.S.
Oh,
That was like a real like government like organization back in the day where they would like
help
yeah,
people who are from other countries get stuff from those countries to America.
no
Because we
no
used to
no
like,
no no
no?
no it was after they died. It was basically like to clean up like people's like possessions and belongings from other countries that like lived in the US. Like Nikola Tesla wasn't from the United States. When he died, the Office of Alien Property custodians came in and took his shit basically.
But those are the fucking people who like robbed everything and it's disappeared.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. John Trump was one of those guys. He
Wait,
was an
go back up.
MIT They're
Hold on.
talking
That's
about
who
it
they're
right now.
describing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go back up one more page. Wait, one more after that, and one more after that. I want to reread it. All right, go. Continue.
I was gonna say there's not much to that. John G. Trump was the guy that was hired because he worked at MIT and was really into electrical engineering. They hired him to like look at like all of it Tesla's stuff.
keep.
They say that it's his grandfather, but it's not. It's his uncle. I don't like the fact that they said that. That takes away credence to this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, his middle name is Donald John Trump, but I don't know. There's a lot. There's a few things that they got wrong in there, but they should. That wasn't the post that I was thinking of.
Do you think that Mandela effects are a new thing and they did just start happening? And I'm sure this is a very common belief about this idea that Mandela started happening because that's when we started time traveling.
Well, I've heard that Mandela started happening when we started messing around with the CERN, the Hadron Collider.
Yeah. Yeah. But the effects of Mandela effects, they sound like time travel effects, don't they?
They do, or they sound like parallel reality effects, I think. And if it is
So,
CERN, and if CERN is like causing all this, then parallel realities would make sense.
but then you have these people that are supposedly time traveling and layer that over it, and then it definitely looks like these people are time traveling. The effects are known. You know what I mean? They're only recently because that's like around the time when time travel was discovered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's when you're allowed to start time traveling and time traveling within.
See, I
You
don't know
can't
how I
you can't
feel
go
about time
before
travel because
when you
it
were time
almost doesn't
traveling. So
make.
we have people from the future who are coming back to when time travel.
See, I don't know if I fully understand like how time traveling like works because it would create a paradox if you were going to the future or from the future to the past or yada yada. Because the only way that I think you'd be able to time travel theoretically is like by hopping through the multiverse and skipping to a parallel timeline instead of just completely actually like, you know, traveling through time. I think a lot of people that we see that might be time travels are just like extra dimensional like travelers. Maybe even like humans from like other dimensions doing this, you know? I don't know. I just think that the idea of like time travel it almost makes no sense because I don't know, closed loops are a thing. Paradoxes are a thing.
Yo, how much of that did you catch?
I didn't catch any of what you said.
Dude, they literally just stepped in and stopped me from telling you the truth.
What did you say?
What was the last thing you heard me say?
Nothing. I heard you say nothing.
But I had to have said something at some point. What was the last thing I said?
Nothing.
So it
I
was just you
swear to God.
talking,
It
and you
was just
don't
me
know.
talking. The entire time it was just me talking.
What was the last thing you said before I left?
I said I don't know if
You
I
said
believe.
it's more like parallel realities instead of time travel. And then I
Yeah.
asked you to imagine, just think about how, just layer the idea and the concept of these rich tech oligarchs actually being time travelers in the future over that. And then also think about the Trump book and the importance of Trump, right? Did you hear any of that?
No, not at all.
Think about that. And also think like the importance of Trump and how it almost seems like that these guys are time travelers, right? They started time their Mandela effects happen only recently because that's when time travel first became possible, right? These guys who are mainly doing it right now, we're starting to notice it more because this is something I had a feeling about and I told you before. You hearing me?
Yeah.
I had a feeling that it almost seems to me like Donald Trump was supposed to win the second term and Joe Biden wasn't supposed to win. Like I'm not a Trump supporter, but I get the vibe that he was supposed to win that election and that they fucking rigged it against him. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And the people rigging it against him are not in on this plan. They're just fucking people who like maybe like this because you know like the oligarchs they're not with the government. You know what I mean? these people who are supposedly time travelers are not with the government. So it was like the government's move to stop Trump from getting in office a second term. So when he lost, that wasn't supposed to happen. All these people who are like Democrats who like aren't Republican at all, or have no like they were like donating a bunch of money to Democrats, just flip and suddenly start supporting Trump and help him get in office. And now that he's actually in office, they're all bending the knee to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
It all just kind of like lines up to me, and it almost seems like we wouldn't have really noticed these oligarchs, and like maybe we wouldn't have really heard about them as much if they didn't need to scramble and make sure that Donald Trump got into office a second time, because it needs to happen, because it's like it's a real important anchor point for time and to them specifically in their plans and how their future is with them controlling the effects. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So
They're
like I'm not even
trying
a big
to
fan of.
make it all go according to plan, and potentially they're kind of messing up the plan in the process.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're there's many factors when it comes to these things, and like controlling time is also kind of like controlling reality. And I think that it's, well, like I always tell you, way more loose than that. You know what I mean? It's not like hitting replay and rewind and all this shit. It's not like that. And that like things are like sand or like liquid, like it just changes every time you go back. And it's that's why things can still fuck up for them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't stop the government from, or a secret sect of the government from making sure that Donald Trump doesn't get in office again, because he's not with that. He's not with them. They couldn't stop that, but they can do their fucking best with all this money, with all that they've gotten from just knowing how to do these things. Because it's like, Booster Gold.
Yeah, from
He's from the
DC.
far future where everybody's just has access to the most advanced tech that like nobody could even imagine in our time. So then but he's just like a janitor, an idiot from that time. So he comes back with like just a little bit of tech from the future, and he's just immediately a superhero.
Yeah,
But it's not just tech; it's like just the knowledge of like how like these things are probably very simple to them. You know what I mean? If this is all true, I'm not saying I believe this. It just really connects for me.
I was gonna
Feels like
say
feels
this
like it
might
should be
be
true.
like one of the wildest conspiracies we've discussed on here.
Yeah, but it's something that like super relevant. It connects Mandela effects to Donald Trump, and hey,
Donald
and
Trump effects.
maybe now the Pope.
Maybe now the Pope.
You know, maybe
Well,
the Pope needed to die,
yeah, JD Vance needed to kill him.
but as everybody's saying, old man. You know, old men die. It's also interesting to me. I'm a big believer in the more woo woo side of the paranormal, and maybe they just needed the Pope to die on Easter. Maybe that was really important to them. All these people who are just praying on Easter. So many people are praying on Easter. Like, just kill your leader.
Yeah, maybe they
That
were all praying for the Pope to die.
maybe it was, well, no, maybe it was just like the spiritual energy, the negative spiritual energy of like all this like positive energy just shifting into negative energy. The power of that.
Yeah. I definitely think a negative energy overwhelmed the Pope when he bore witness to JD Vance on one of his last days.
Yeah, I mean, he was smiling. They seem to have gotten along in the 5-second clip I saw.